At the edge of a wide mountain range, where the earth rose like a sleeping beast and the wind carried the scent of dust and old stories, there lay a tiny village made of sun-baked clay. The homes stood shoulder to shoulder, as if huddling for protection under the looming shadow of the mountain. In this quiet place lived a boy named Hakim, thin, soft-spoken, and far too observant for his age. While other children spent their days shouting and chasing each other between the narrow alleys, Hakim preferred the company of things that did not speak, at least not in the way people expected. His father, a simple farmer, had raised him alone after his mother died, giving birth to him. With little time for parenting, the man left Hakim mostly to the world itself, and the world raised him in return. To the villagers, Hakim was an oddity. He could spend hours lying on his stomach in the dirt, watching ants march in perfect rows, or following a beetle as it pushed a dusty pellet across the ground. Adults whispered that the boy was strange. Children teased him mercilessly, and Hakim, who seldom defended himself, simply listened deeply, with a sense of perception no one else possessed. Because Hakim didn't just watch the ants. He understood them. How he came to possess this strange gift, not even he knew. He didn't hear their communication as words, nor see it as visions. Rather, he felt it. Patterns of scent and vibration transformed in his mind into emotions, commands, warnings. To him, the earth was not silent. It hummed with signals, conversations, and ancient instincts. The ants' alarm smelled sharp and metallic. Their satisfaction felt like a warm ripple in his chest. Their grief fell over him as a cold, heavy stillness. And the ants, in turn, recognized him. They never fled from his shadow, nor bit his skin. Sometimes they even diverted their trails to pass near him, as if greeting a familiar giant. Near an old fig tree at the village's edge lay the largest ant colony Hakim had ever studied. He knew every tunnel entrance, every worker's rhythm, every soldier's post. Many evenings he left crumbs or a pinch of sugar nearby, receiving a faint wave of collective gratitude in return. But everything changed on a late summer afternoon, one of those unsettling days when the air feels thick, as though the sky itself is holding its breath. Hakim noticed it first in the ants. Their orderly lines collapsed into chaos. Workers rushed out of the underground nest carrying white larvae clutched against their bodies, abandoning food and supplies as they scrambled upward toward the rocky hills. The emotional signal that washed over Hakim hit him like a blade. Panic. Urgency. Flee. Now. He pressed his palm to the ground, closing his eyes as the vibrations trembled through his bones. Then, amid the noise, a single message sharpened into clarity. A soldier ant, larger and older than most, sending out commands like frantic drumbeats. Leave everything. Save the young. The mountain is waking. The deep water will break. The earth will open. Hakim jerked back, his breath caught in his throat. The ants sensed something beneath the ground, something enormous. The village, his home, stood directly in an ancient floodpath that had been dry for centuries. Elders sometimes spoke of the mountain's temper, of mudslides and roaring waters long ago, but no one took those tales seriously anymore. No one except the ants. Hakim ran, faster than he had ever run in his life. He burst into the central square where the men of the village lounged beneath a walnut tree, sipping tea and discussing the heavy weather. His voice cracked as he screamed, "A flood is coming. The mountain is going to collapse. You have to run now." Laughter erupted instantly. "Look at this," scoffed Abu Fakri, the village chief, a heavy man with a booming voice. The ant boy has finally lost his mind. Even Hakim's father grabbed his arm in embarrassment. "Stop this nonsense," he hissed. "You're humiliating us." But Hakim wrenched away, tears of frustration burning down his cheeks. "It's the ants, father. They're fleeing. They're taking their young and sealing their tunnels. They feel the earth moving." The mockery grew harsher. Children mimicked his cries. Men wiped tears of laughter from their eyes. And just when despair nearly crushed him, two things happened in the same breath. First, a tremor, barely noticeable, but unmistakably real, slid beneath their feet like a warning whisper. Second, from the forest bordering the village, a roar of wings erupted. Thousands of birds shot into the sky in a black, frantic cloud, fleeing the direction of the mountain as if chased by an unseen monster. Silence fell. Even Abu Fakri froze, his laugh dying on his lips. Hakim stepped forward, voice steady now. You didn't believe the ants. Will you ignore the birds too? Before anyone could answer, a deep, groaning sound rolled from the mountain's heart, a grinding thunder that seemed to twist the air itself. The ground shuddered harder this time. Dust rose from rooftops. Pebbles danced in the dirt. Fear spread through the villagers like fire. Hakim's father seized his shoulders. Where do we go, son? Tell us, where did the ants run? For the first time in his life, Hakim saw trust in the man's eyes. He pointed toward the high ridge beyond the eastern fields. Up there. Follow me. Don't stop. The villagers ran, some clutching children, others dragging the elderly. Panic drove them up the slope as the mountain roared behind them. Hakim led the way with astonishing certainty, guided by the memory of the ants' exodus. But not everyone fled. Abu Fakri, blinded by desperation, broke away from the group. My gold, he shouted. My savings are buried beneath my house. I can't leave it. He sprinted back toward the village despite the screams warning him to stop. Hakim's father turned back just in time to see the earth split open. A wall of mud, water, and shattered rock, released from the mountain's hidden chambers, tore through the village with a monstrous roar. It swallowed homes, trees, alleys, everything. The flood rushed forward with the force of a collapsing world. Hakim's father lunged down the slope, grabbed Abu Fakri in the final heartbeat before the wave could reach him, and hauled him upward just as the mud devoured the ground beneath their feet. By the time the survivors reached the ridge, the village had vanished, reduced to a churning lake of brown water and broken earth. They stared in stunned silence at the destruction, the grief too large for words. But when they turned to Hakim, sitting quietly on a rock with an ant crawling over his hand, something shifted in their hearts. He was no longer the strange boy who talked to insects. He was the child who had saved them all. The next morning, when the sun illuminated the ruined valley, the people made a vow. They rebuilt their homes on the high ground, the same place the ants had chosen. They stopped laughing at the boy who listened to the earth. And Abu Fakri, humbled and trembling, placed his large hand on Hakim's head. We were blind, he said softly. We mocked what we did not understand. Your tiny friends knew more than all of us. From that day forward, the villagers called Hakim not the ant boy, but the guardian of the mountain, the one who heard wisdom whispered by the smallest creatures and taught his people the greatest lesson of all. Sometimes, the earth warns us in voices too small for most to hear. And sometimes, the smallest lives carry the greatest truth. Here we've reached the end of the story. I hope you enjoyed it. Write in the comments where you're watching from, and don't forget to support us by subscribing. See you in another story.